What is up, guys? This is All the Smoke on Strength Physique with your hosts, Adam and Chris, where we provide you with evidence-based information, community support, and recognition to all who are bettering themselves with fitness.
So welcome back to All the Smoke on Strength Physique. We got the specialist guest I think we've had thus far, Dr. Bill Campbell. If you don't know him and you're into the physique science or bodybuilding, or if you're just trying to improve your body composition and you don't know him, you're doing it completely wrong. So Dr. Campbell, I appreciate you coming on. He said this is his third podcast. That's how busy this guy is. But I think we got the inside scoop, so he had to come on. So Dr. Campbell, for those people, I'm going to say the joke, Chris. For our 5 listeners that don't know who you are, Dr. Campbell, could you go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Bill Campbell. I got my PhD from Baylor University in 2007. It was in exercise, nutrition, and preventive health. And I've been a professor of exercise science at the University of South Florida for almost 14 years. It will be 14 years this August. And the only reason I remember that is because my daughter is 14 years old and she was literally born about a few months before we came here. So it's always easy for me to remember that. And I direct the Performance and Physique Enhancement Laboratory, which you're both very intimate knowledge of. We basically have 2 focuses. One is on performance enhancement, and that usually focuses on resistance training performance, so maximizing strength, maximizing power performance, muscular endurance. And then the other focus is physique enhancement, and that's where we've been for the last 4 or 5 years. And that is all about losing fat, maintaining muscle, or gaining muscle.
Nice. Yeah, it's always been a pleasure. I've been with you for quite some time, even in undergrad. And it's been great to watch yourself in the lab just grow. I remember sandbags being over there by the squat racks, and now it's a beauty. I miss it tremendously. So could you go ahead, if you don't mind, tell us about some of the current research? Because I know ISSN is coming up. Some of the research that you would plan to present, if that is allowed.
Yes, yeah, I can discuss some of what we're going to. I can't really give the results, but I can tell you about the study. So we, all 3 of us on here, are going to be presenting data on, through the abstract posters, a rapid fat loss study. So what we did with that study is, well, the emphasis behind the study was a kind of it's going to be, or has become, a life's mission of mine. I want to know how much fat we can take off of the human body in the shortest amount of time without causing damage. And when I say damage, I mean, let's not lose muscle mass, and let's not try to suppress metabolism or tank hormones as well. So what is that threshold of how aggressive can we be so that we maximize fat loss, but yet maintain muscle mass? So this is the first of what will probably be, maybe the rest of my career, this type of work where we're going to be aggressive and look at different types of variables along with being aggressive, whether it's different training programs, different protein intakes, different dietary supplements, etc. So we put people on a 2-week aggressive diet. They were prescribed a 37.5% caloric deficit on average over 2 weeks. Some little nuances with what we did with that. And our main question was, if you are resistance training during those 2 weeks, if you have high protein, 1 gram per pound or 2.2 grams per kg, can you maintain your muscle mass? Can you keep your metabolism from slowing down? And how much fat do you lose? So if anybody is attending the ISSN conference in about 2 weeks, we will be presenting that data there at the conference. And I will say the results of that study has made a major shift in what I think about rapid fat loss. Maybe we can do this again in a few months. Well, I'll have some other studies. We'll have a flexible dieting study that will be published soon. So maybe we can talk about both of those studies. But yeah, the results were surprising on one of the variables. Like I said, so much so that a lot of what I thought, I'm now questioning about these short-term diets.
And
so
like you mentioned, this one was only 2 weeks. Well, of course, you've looked into it. Have you looked into what other studies, or has there been a lot of research on this topic, or maybe research that didn't directly look at this, but you guys were able to get information out? And how long did they look at?
Yeah, there was one. First of all, there's very little research in the population that we study. So the population that we study is, well, it is not an obese population, and they are not bodybuilders. They're kind of this hybrid of people who are fitness enthusiasts, who are already relatively lean. And when I say lean, in the scientific realm, if you're not obese, you're considered lean. So they're lean from scientific journal perspectives. And they're people that just want to be a little bit leaner. So they're very serious about their nutrition and their training. So that's kind of that's the research that's the market that our research serves, that fitness enthusiast. And when you try to find other research to compare it to, there's just a handful there. In fact, once this study gets published, along with two other ones that are in the peer review process, I don't think there's going to be another lab that has more published work in this area of weight loss in people who aren't overweight and that resistance training. So I think I just described, the population. And when I looked at the other research, there was one study that was a 2-week rapid fat loss study. That was judo athletes. That was a little more performance-based. I can't remember the caloric deficit. It might have been 50%. Lost a lot of fat-free mass. Now, some of that might have been water weight. There was a 1-month study in Dr. Stu Phillips' lab. I always call it the Longland study. That's the first author's last name. That was a 1-month 40% caloric reduction in overweight and obese males who were previously untrained. And we've got a 5.5 to 8 week study looking at different rapid versus slower rates of weight loss in resistance trained people. That's getting
Yeah.
about, we're starting to name everything that's been done in the population.
And I think this opens up, like you said, this might be your remaining focus because it's such a non-research topic. And I think it's really important to consider the population it's just fitness enthusiasts. I know there's been a lot more case studies and a lot more just focus on bodybuilders than there has in the past. But I mean, this is a specific population that we can find out a lot about. And then other populations that we can then go take those and experiment it with as well. So it'll be very exciting to see these studies. The only one that I'm familiar with is the rapid fat loss that I assisted with, but I'm excited to see these others as well. Now, rapid fat loss is not this is something that relates to your 3 principles of fat loss, of losing weight slowly, not being rapid. Could you go ahead and tell us those 3 main principles just for our listeners, and what sort of guided you in the direction of, I guess, identifying these as core principles?
Yeah, I was just looking for my book. I was going to show you when I get to what kind of guided me there. But the 3 principles of fat loss, and again, we have to make sure that we're focusing on the correct population. So this is not for obese individuals, because there may be a place for obese individuals to lose fat more quickly or lose weight more rapidly. But principle number 1 is don't lose weight too fast. Keep it slow. And the reason that I advocate that is for the same reasons we just mentioned. We don't want to lose muscle mass, and we don't want to suppress metabolism. So take it slow. And I'll be honest, the longer I've been in this space, if it does nothing else, hopefully it's the one voice in the wilderness or the one voice in the universe who tells people, I don't have to lose 10 pounds in a month, or I shouldn't expect this. Everybody, when they go on a diet, it is not fast enough. And how do I know this? Because I go on diets and I'm frustrated with how slow it is. And I know better. And I still think this isn't working. What am I doing wrong? And then I'm like, I hit myself in the head. It's like, stop it. I'm the preacher here. So Yes, it's not normal to lose a lot of weight fast, and you only set yourself up for future weight loss success when you do that. Now, again, somebody who's 450 pounds, I'm not talking to that population. There may be health reasons, or that it may be appropriate for them. Principle number 2 is do not decrease protein when dieting. So we have a lot of data in obese weight loss research that suggests when you increase protein in a caloric deficit, fat loss is significantly greater, muscle mass is better maintained, and the rate of fat loss is actually improved as well. Then the third principle is resistance train when dieting. And quickly, I look at dieting as a catabolic environment. Everything about a caloric deficit is catabolic. You're losing fat, good. You're also losing muscle. You're breaking down tissues. Resistance exercise is one mode of exercise that introduces an anabolic stimulus in an otherwise catabolic phase of your life. So let's do more of that during a catabolic diet. And you could say the same thing about protein as well. The other question you asked is what guided me on this? So I wrote a textbook, I don't know, 7 years ago now. It was a sports nutrition textbook, which you guys probably have. And yes, it was sports nutrition, and it was more focused on performance enhancement. But I couldn't bring myself to not include a chapter on body composition. And I was just, a time in my life, and I can get specific here, especially for Adam. I had just gotten tenure. And basically the next year, it really didn't matter what I did. Like I wasn't under a lot of pressure to publish a lot of research in terms of academic journals. No, I'm sorry. This was going into my year of my tenure review. So anything I did that year, it wasn't going to make a difference on whether I got tenure or not. So it was the perfect year to write a book, because writing books it's a time warp, one. And in my line of work, you want to show that every year you're publishing journals. But again, this is the one year where it didn't matter. So I said, yep, let's do this. And I knew it was an investment of time. And I can't say I set out to come up with 3 principles, but as I was writing that chapter, looking at all the data, the principles just kind of manifested themselves to me as I read the literature. I'm like, this is when people go on crash diets, the outcomes aren't good. When people have low protein, the outcomes aren't good. And when you don't resistance train. So through the process of just focusing on the general concept of body composition and dieting, I would just say they surfaced, and I know people like numbered lists. So I said, let's make this a list. So I did. So there's the 3 principles of fat loss.
And three is a good number for sure too. So
yeah, I don't forget them.
So, regarding those principles, right? Do you believe that, it's not just calories in versus calories out? What other aspects or considerations do you think are just as important? Obviously with those principles kind of building off of those, but what other aspects, either working with a bodybuilder or a gen pop individual, what other considerations would you take when in starting a fat loss phase?
Yeah, so my thickest filter, or my first filter, is caloric deficits. You have to start there, or you don't have to, but I think it's wise you start there. I also believe, because the other area that's a little bit, I don't want to say controversial, but the other area that gets a lot of attention right now is hormones. So is it hormones? Is it calories in, calories out? And I personally think that the calories are the puppet master. That's what's dictating the hormones. So the hormones respond to the calories. And I think where people get it wrong is they think, oh no, they go right to hormones and think that the hormones are conducting the orchestra. And I don't think that. That's not to say that hormones aren't important. So one of the areas, and I would say I'm frustrated, but I'm ignorantly frustrated. I'm not there are some people in our field, in our space, we'll call it the evidence-based space, where it's 100% calories in, calories out, and they close the book, and that's it. And I know too many people, too many coaches that I respect that have clients that cannot lose fat, and they would swear on their life that their clients are in a caloric deficit. So I get people that call me, like they want to consult, and I don't really do consults, but I get consult calls. What can I do with this client? So you hear enough of that. There's more to it than calories in, calories out, in some cases. And in that case, the next place I would go is, okay, are there any hormonal imbalances that would make sense that could explain why there's a resistance to further fat loss? So I filter, but I'm filtered with calories in, calories out, but I'm not an absolutist. If somebody's struggling, I'm open to other ideas.
Now, if they're struggling during a fat loss phase and say like their calories are maybe just too low, what is a method that you're going to kind of utilize then? If again, they're following those 3 principles of fat loss, they're resistance training, they tried to take it slow, they're in a deficit, and as well, they're eating a high protein diet. What is the next move that you would make for that individual?
Well, what I have done is I call Paul Revelia or Lane Norton or Lauren Conlon, like John Gorman, Will Grazione. So I go to my network, or Adam, I'll ask you, or Chris, I'll ask you, have you dealt with this? And I do that because I'm not a coach. My research is on the calories aspect of this. So I'm in the process of learning. So the first thing I would do, though, if I didn't have, and everything I know is coming from coaches, because there's not a lot of research on this stuff. I would ask for blood work, and I would say, what's not optimized is, so something that coaches have impressed upon me. If cortisol levels are very high, and again, I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying coaches that I respect believe what I'm about to tell you, and therefore out of my respect, I think there may be something to that. I guess I should step back. Sleep would be the first thing. Is sleep constantly disrupted, or is that consistently good? If cortisol levels are high, fasting cortisol levels in the morning, so I'm told by people that I respect, that can be a major roadblock to fat loss in some people. So maybe we would suggest changing something about the training program. Is there, and when I use the word overtraining, you're not going to find a one mark of overtraining, but can we adjust the training to see if that would be causing an elevated cortisol level? I do have one client now with high levels of reverse T3, and I'm spending some time. And again, this is just somebody I'm helping. It's not a client. I'm not a coach, but definitely struggling with fat loss, does everything right. And this is somebody I've known for a long time. And we got blood work back, and reverse T3 is high, and reverse T3 can compete with T3, which is a very active metabolic hormone. So I'm trying to teach myself live, like as we speak, this week today, what does that mean? Like, what can I do? And I don't have an answer, but that's where my mind goes. Blood work, and then are there things that can be done?
I think that makes me feel a lot better too, because we recently did a podcast, and bless William Grazione, he invited us to his office. We worked out with him, an amazing guy. Shout out to him, a lot of respect. But that's something he focuses heavily on, because Gillis came from that field of hormonal work, and he was under physician, and that's all he did was read lab work. And that's how he and William Grazione became so effective with it. But it's something I don't know, and it makes me feel a lot more comfortable that you don't know much about it either. What do you feel about like a starting point? Because like you said, calories in, calories out is of course important, but the hormonal side responds to a low calorie amount. Like you'll see a negative effect with your hormones if you're not eating enough or you're eating sub 1,000 calories. What do you recommend for those Gen Pop individuals that just come to a coach not eating a lot? Because it's something I experience a lot. And my initial focus is, okay, we can train. Let's not train too much and let's focus on eating better. Would you say that's a safe approach, or what approach and how high would you recommend going for calories depending on the individual?
My approach would be, and again, you guys are the experts with coaching, not me, but what I would do is, I'm not saying this is easy, but I would increase calories slowly over time and see if that changes anything for the positive. And I think it would, give it enough time. Mm-hmm. I think the hard part of that is to sell that to a client, because why are they coming to us? They're coming to lose fat. And here you are saying, that is not a good approach. And I have the luxury. I don't make money from coaching. I'd say go to 1,000 other coaches if you wanted that. If you're asking for my help, we're going to treat your body as a scientific experiment, and you're going to commit to this for 3 months, and we're going to increase your calories. And I want you to admit, like literally sign a contract that you can expect to gain fat, but that's part of the plan. And I would almost put it in their head, you're going to gain 5 pounds of fat, something higher than what I think would actually happen, but just to orient their minds to, oh, I gained 3 pounds and Dr. Campbell said that I would gain up to 5. So I want to change their entire universe of thinking, get that buy-in, which again, I'm making it sound easy. It's not. And to do that, I'm selling 5 years, 10 years. You're thinking this month or next week at the beach. I'm thinking a lifestyle physique for you for the rest of your life. And we will have this data on you for 3, like I would ask them, hey, what happens if you increase your calories by 3% every week for 3 months? And of course they would say, I don't know. Well, wouldn't you like to find out? Don't you think that's valuable information for your life? If you're into fitness and you struggle with weight gain, I struggle with weight gain. I'll gain weight quickly if I stop tracking my macros. I do. It happens fast for me. I'm either all in or all out.
Dr. Campbell loves his Chipotle. That's why.
Oh, yeah. So when I diet, like I'm dieting now, I just get bowls. And when I'm not dieting, I get the burrito or 3. Yeah, I love food. And there's a lot of people like me. And I think a lot of people in fitness don't like to admit that. Some people don't. They're not obsessed with food. And it's funny. You guys see this. There's this big push towards intuitive eating. And I think it's the utopia. I think it's the destination and it's great. But I think a lot of people pushing that are people who don't struggle with weight gain. They're not food focused. They're not food obsessed, and they just don't get it. And I'll say that. Again, intuitive eating is the destination. It's the place where I wish everybody would be.
So when you say that, I always think intuitive eating is such a broad term. And I would rather it be called like educational eating. So let's lay down this foundation, tracking your macros for months, years, etc. And now you can wean off of tracking and understand, hey, that's 4 ounces of chicken. That's X amount of grams of whatever it is. But now you have a visual approach because you've done it for so long. You have the experience. But somebody that's just straight up coming and says, oh, I can intuitive eat and I can do all that. It's like, do you even know how much that is? Or you don't even know what a protein, carb, and fat is. So I don't think that I think it's such a bad interpretation of what that term actually means. When I think of intuitive eating, I think, okay, I'll step away, but like I'm more eating educational wise. Instead of maybe having sauces and all of that, like I'm going to get them on the side. So I can control what I can put on whatever entree or meal I'm going to have. But it's not, when you say intuitive eating, you just go into, like you said, la la land and, hey, I can eat whatever I want and not gain weight or lose weight and stuff like that. I think, again, that's some type of fantasy. And I try to watch what I say with that. Is that you're not eating intuitively, you're eating educationally, because now we've built the experience. You know what everything kind of looks like, and you can kind of decipher what you can approach your nutrition with.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the pendulum has swung a little too far in that direction. Again, I'm for people who struggle. If you don't struggle, it's easy. But if I do anything intuitively, I intuitively overeat. That's just what I do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention is I intuitively undereat and I will lose weight if I stop tracking food. So it might not be in the best interest, but the biggest thing that I've learned since I've been tracking probably for about the last 9 months is that I usually in my stomach need to be uncomfortable in order to maintain. And that's not the case for everyone. Some people like you, Dr. Campbell, is you'll stop tracking and you'll gain weight instantly. And I think that's a thing that some people don't realize is that there's a lot more behind intuitive eating than just, oh, I'll just eat based on what I feel like or how I feel that day. And the hormonal side, I think, plays a lot bigger role that I can't say how big of a role because I'm not familiar with that as much. But something I've learned recently is there is I guess you could say like a circadian clock for your eating hormones. And if you can get on an eating schedule, you will likely get hungry at those times every single day. So I think
that makes sense. Yeah. And then you'd want to feed it. You'd want to eat during those times.
Yeah. And I think intuitive eating might be at a very early stage that needs to be looked further at and I guess established further before all these people are like, everyone should intuitively eat. And there's just a lot more behind that.
I wonder, and I actually wonder, is there anybody who used to be obese or overweight who is able to intuitively eat? Because everybody that I know that advocates, they've never been overweight. And again, that's only a handful of people that I'm thinking of that I know that push that. But I'd be curious. I almost think it's a different type of person who doesn't really struggle with hunger. And again, you're struggling with it in the other direction, which I can't relate to. And you probably can't relate to me.
Yeah. And I've had a few clients that were overweight and they have lost a lot of weight, 50 plus, 100 plus. I think one might even be 150 plus, and they don't track any of their food now. But now it's to a point where they lost all that weight and now they're having a hard time because they are not eating an optimal amount and they can't lose weight because they're at the exact opposite spectrum. They're not eating too much. They're eating too little and their metabolism has adapted to that. And now they're never hungry, but they don't eat a lot as well. Mm-hmm. So I've had a few clients that do it, but I'm interested on the bigger picture and if that is a cause for a weight regain as well. Adam, have you had any clients or any experience with that?
So, I mean, I wouldn't say I just full blown go intuitive eating. Right? If somebody has a good amount of experience with tracking macros, I'll throw in like a free meal or a free day. Or like for example, now a lot of people are going back on summer vacations. I say, right, I always have this phrase like food is culture, culture is life, right? If you're not enjoying life, we're doing something wrong here. So I say, hey, right, we know the principles, right? We know I instill a lot of those 3 principles within our clients' mindsets. And okay, let's focus on protein. Let's focus on these nutritional dense foods. And more importantly, when you're away, let's focus on a lot of movement, right? Because you're probably not going to resistance train as much, but instead of taking a shuttle bus or something like that, walk, right? Increase your NEAT. But I say, go ahead and just untrack for that whole week, take it as a diet break, or if anything. But I always kind of focus, hey, like, let's live in the moment, right? Even if you gain 5 pounds, right? Being back home and being consistent for another week or two, maybe we get back better, but those memories, you're never going to gain back. So enjoy yourself while you're there. So I guess that's the kind of approach that I would take, I guess, with intuitive eating, but I won't just throw intuitive eating out there. I say, hey, be educational, be smart, and how, I guess my phrase, since it's all the smoke on Strength Physique, don't eat like an asshole, right? If you are there and you're like, hey, I want all this, this, and this, that's probably not a good idea. So dial back. And I always say, somebody, hey, just take 4 deep breaths, right? If that's what you want to do, by all means, you can do it, but understand the consequences you're going to do. And I always say it's habit-based, right? You're going to do it today, don't do it tomorrow, right? I always try to follow that 2-day principle with all of my clients as well, right? Just get right back on track the next day or the next meal, and et cetera on that. But other than that, Dr. Campbell, right? So I'd like to hear your form because, right, with scientific research, and you just made a really good post recently on the retinal scale, if I said that correct, right? We want measurements, right? And the scale isn't probably the best measurement for either phase, either if it's a fat loss phase or a reverse or a gaining phase. What other forms or types of measurements would you suggest that are more applicable for general population individuals that are going through those phases?
Yeah, and I struggle with this because it needs to be practical, and sometimes what's practical isn't the best approach. So what I think is the best, but it lacks a little bit of practicality, is an assortment of measures. So a scale, and I would say one that does body fat percentage, and that would be BIA. So again, Renfo scale, I had some issues with. So let's say a scale. Obviously, you have the mirror, how your clothes fit. I would also suggest, in addition to that, a tape measure around your waist. That's quick. And then finally, a 3-site skin fold check, which props to you, Adam. You were the best body composition technician in my lab. I'm gonna miss you.
I had the guidance from the best right there, so that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, I just look at the data from the rapid fat loss study. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, so what I've done recently is, since I'm dieting, I'm trying to follow my own advice. So it's not easy, but I do a pinch on myself at my abdomen, on the right-hand side, about an inch to the right of my belly button. I do a pinch above my hip on the anterior aspect of my hip, and another one on my thigh. So I'm getting 2 upper body, 1 lower body pinch with skin folds. I have my scale weight, and I have my body fat percentage on the scale as well. And then I don't do this, but I would recommend a tape measure. So I've got tape measure, skin folds, scale weight, body fat percentage. So I've got 4 different measures over time that will hopefully all kind of tell the same story. But if one's off, if one's crazy, well, I've got 3, or I've got 2 other ones that can tell me if things are moving in the right direction. What I don't like about that is I got to pinch myself 3 times. So I just do that once a week. I'll do I would suggest, I don't do tape measure, but I would suggest tape measure every Sunday, 3 skin folds every Sunday or Saturday. So once a week, same day. And you do your weigh-ins and your body fat percentage every day, because that's quick. You just step on the scale and you take an average, that 7-day average. So that is how I would suggest a general population person who doesn't want to pay money or go to a research facility to get research grade stuff. I think that's the best. I would say, if that's a little much, which it could be, get a great scale that can measure body fat percentage and take a weekly average. That's what I'm committed to finding. It's just not the Renfo scale, but there's going to be some scale out there that's going to fit that. Nothing's perfect, but then at least it's quick.
Gotcha. I agree with all of those. What are your thoughts, though, on maybe taking as well progress pictures? And I heard you hit on it a little bit, just how your clothes are feeling. And I would ask too, what for, I guess, your current situation, what if, all of those objective measures are kind of, just bland and not even giving what you actually feel? What are you kind of telling yourself that, hey, stick through it, or, hey, you feel really good, but maybe, again, the objective measures that haven't dropped yet? What kind of, I guess, mental cues or mental perception are you telling yourself to kind of push forward, although everything is telling you, hey, this isn't working?
Yeah, so I think I have the advantage of having a scientific mindset. So I'm like, to me, it's just data. Like, I'm happily married. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to pick up anybody. So who cares? My wife could care less if I'm 20 pounds overweight or 5 pounds overweight. I just better be overweight rather than underweight, according to her. So I'm very blessed. It's data, and the data would tell me in that case, what I'm doing is not working. Let's adjust. So I would just adjust. I would say, yeah, if these measures aren't working, if I have 4 measures, it's not working. So I can get very real here. I'm doing a diet, and I guess I'm chronicling that, if that's the right word, on my Instagram. And I realized with my Renfo scale, which I thought I loved, I'm like, this is not moving at all. And I'm not cheating on anything. And I'm just like, it's not working. It's not going fast enough. And then I realized, okay, I'm going to check the data. And what I did, were you guys here when we did the diet break study? Okay, so
That with Madeline, yes.
I don't think I was a part of that semester.
So we gave this home-based scale to all of our subjects, and I was able to track. We also did test reliability. So we could see how well it picked up fat loss as compared to ultrasound and a research grade bioelectrical impedance. And I analyzed that data, and it didn't track fat loss. It was bad. So then I realized, oh, my scale's not good. I'm not getting progress because my scale just isn't moving. Now I kind of thought that. I kind of had that inkling. But don't forget, I also have my skin folds, and that went down a little bit. My scale weight's down. So I had enough other metrics to tell me, hey, this is working. But is anybody really going to do skin folds and a tape measure? Like, unless they're kind of nerdy, they probably won't. So now that being said, it still went down. I started at like 17.2, now it's like 17. So it only went down 0.2%, but on that scale, that's a lot. That's a lot of movement for that scale.
So that's actually something, I saw that post and it actually hit hard with me because mine was the exact opposite, because I've been trying to bulk, trying to gain weight, gain muscle. And I guess you would have to have information, but what do you think? Okay, it doesn't lose the body fat percent as quickly as it should, or like as much as what is actually happening. So is that the same as if it only goes up 0.2? Are you actually gaining more fat, you think?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's just not. And let me tell you the reason I love the scale. I love the scale because when I step on it, it gave me the same number every single time. Most scales don't do that. So I'm like, this is great. This is reliable. It's so reliable, it doesn't move at all. So it's. Yeah. In that post, I said it needs to have two things. It needs to be reliable, but it needs to be able to detect. And that's probably a dance. It has to be able to detect changes, but you don't want to step on a scale once and it says 10% and then wait 2 minutes and the next time it says 38%. Like, that's worthless. But yes, on that scale, if it's slowly going up, you're probably gaining a lot more fat than that.
Chris is doing a dirty bulk then. Chris, you're doing a dirty bulk then, my man.
No more Oreos for me.
So with that scale though, would you possibly recommend just going off the body fat percentage on one specific day rather than every day? Or is it just is just invalid?
No, that for that scale, that would be less of a concern. For other scales, I don't like that, because what if you have a day of where it's just off? Now you're going to question your whole diet approach. But on that scale, it's not gonna. And I've had people tell me, and I don't know if they're experts or if they're technicians, but they said, yeah, that scale, it's just basically a straight algorithm with your body weight, and it's not really even measuring the impedance. I don't know if that's true. I hope that's not true.
I hope that's not either, because I was excited about that scale.
I had to use that scale every day. I'd be terrible. I'd be terrified if that was the case.
Hey, InBody, which is the one we have, that's really good. Adam, that tracked almost identical to you. I mean, the change with your skill on the ultrasound. So I love the InBody. You confirmed how much I love that InBody. So InBody now sells a home-based scale where you step on it and you hold something out in front of you. It's expensive though, so it's like $350. So I'm doing some just pilot work on that for myself, but that is not very reliable. Like, it can be up to 1% off from test to test. Stepping on, stepping off. So the way that you fix that is you get on there twice and take the average of the two, and that kind of teases that out a little. But if it's anywhere close to what the research grade model is, as long as you do that averaging on the daily basis, I think it's going to be able to detect differences over time. I'll be able to tell you, at least in my case. And then I'm going to insert that scale into our next weight loss study so I can get hard data on it as well.
Awesome. Now, are you in a current fat loss phase, you said?
Yes.
Are you, something we didn't touch on yet that we wanted to was diet breaks and refeeds. Is that something you like utilizing, or in what way would you recommend people utilizing them?
First, sorry. First, could you please define what a diet break and a refeed is, please?
Sure. Yeah, diet break is typically, in the research literature, taking a break from your diet that lasts at least 1 week. So it's 7 days off, stopping your diet, or you're going back to maintenance calories or maybe even a slight surplus. Some studies, it's 2 weeks. We've even had 6 week studies, or 6 weeks of taking a break from your diet. A diet refeed is the same thing, except instead of a week, it's typically 2 days or 1 day, maybe 3 days of a break from the diet, typically on the weekends. So those are the same concept. And if you go back earlier, I think it's the same philosophy. When you're dieting, everything about that diet is catabolic. That's good in some aspects, not good in others. When you take a diet break or a refeed, that's one short period of the week or over time that you are in an anabolic, or at least not a catabolic environment for that week. So I think there has some tangible value in that regard. When you look at the totality of the research in that area, you're never going to find a study where it was harmful. People aren't gaining excess body fat. You will find research that says it's helpful, not all. It's either helpful, where they lose more fat or they maintain their dry fat-free mass, or it's of no benefit. The Jackson Payos from Australia just published a diet break study. The one benefit they found was in a psychological variable. I don't remember which one it was, but I think it was disinhibition, which is the feeling of overeating. And we found the same thing in our study. So it seems like there's some psychological benefits. And me personally, I will always use refeeds. So I'm on this 10-week diet. Every weekend, I don't diet anymore because we go out. I go out to eat. Yes, Chipotle. Usually get pizza on Sundays. So one, for me, it's a mental break. I really look forward to eating more food. Again, I'm very food focused, and we will be going to Orlando for a week. I don't remember when, July. So I'll take a diet break that week. So I won't now. When I say diet break and refeed, that means I'm still not overeating. I'm going back to maintenance calories. So there's still a level of restraint with these concepts. So I personally, for my lifestyle, they make sense. And are there negatives? Well, one clear negative is it's going to take you longer to lose fat if you keep taking breaks. But guess whose philosophy that aligns with? Mine. I'm never going to try to talk you out of taking a longer time to lose fat. So I don't see that as a negative. I actually like the idea of a longer time to lose fat, because I think it puts you in a situation where your habits are going to be more longer lasting.
And something that Adam had texted me some topics for us to talk about, and one that I really was curious about is, do you think, or are there any missing gaps or missing areas that you think could be researched more when it comes to diet breaks or refeeds in general?
Yeah, I mean, one, we just need more studies. What you're going to see, especially with the study out of Australia, what you're going to see when we publish our study on diet breaks, you're going to see a lot of people saying they're not good, they're worthless. If you think that they're going to give you some magic advantage, that's not true. But again, from a psychological standpoint, or from a lifestyle physique standpoint. So a lot of people, and I would particularly say the bodybuilding mindset is, if something doesn't give you an advantage, then it's worthless. And I don't think that's not how I interpret diet breaks. Even if they don't give you an advantage, if they're not causing harm and it allows me to adhere to my lifestyle diet better, I think that's advantageous. But you're only going to hear that they're no good for the next couple years, is what I think.
Yeah, I remember when that study came out, Jackson Payos, I'm pretty sure he slammed you and said your data was wrong or you guys ran the statistics wrong. And then I remember your reply to it was, no, it wasn't wrong. I think you were just pretty much saying I think you're maybe interpreting the wrong way. But I love, in our physique enhancement class, right? Your approach to dieting is, hey, dieting is hard in itself, right? How can we make it easier? And when the week ends, for a lot of individuals, the week ends. Like, what's a diet? I've never heard of that. Spanish. So again, having that planned increase, again, makes it sustainable and maintainable for anybody. And I think that's, in my opinion, one of the more important aspects of utilizing diet breaks or refeeds.
I love that, because now if they do overeat, it's part of the plan. They're not, otherwise they failed. They screwed up. And now they might quit their diet. Whereas if, like you said, if we prescribe more calories for you, you didn't fail anything. You stuck to the plan. So now, again, that does involve not overeating, but you can adjust that. If people love to eat a lot on the weekends, that just simply means we've got to dial back the calories a little more Monday through Friday.
Now, one question that I always get asked frequently is, right, if I'm not willing to get into a lab and under the spaceship that we have that tests RMR, what is the best way to, I guess, calculate or figure out what your maintenance calories are?
Well, what I like, and I have a, like you said, the spaceship, but if you can just track how many calories you're eating, that's the most important thing, because that tells you what your maintenance calories are. Do you gain weight or do you lose weight? If you don't gain weight or lose weight, there's your metabolism. There's your maintenance calories. If you don't want to do that, because that involves tracking your calories for, I would say, 2 weeks straight and weighing yourself every day and making sure that you're not gaining or losing weight. The other thing you can do is use one of these estimating equations like Harris-Benedict. So you put in your height, your weight, your sex. I think that's about it. And that it will estimate your resting metabolic rate. And then that doesn't mean that's how many calories you should eat. That just says that's what your resting metabolism is. And then typically you multiply that by, for people like us who exercise, about 1.55 tends to be a pretty good number for most people. But I like I said, I like, if I eat about 2,900 calories every day, I don't gain weight, I don't lose weight. There's my metabolism. My metabolism is 2,900 calories. It's not my resting, it's my total daily metabolism.
I agree. I think so what I do for a lot of my clients that first come in, I was like, hey, let's just do a baseline week, right? It's trying to teach you how to track habitually, right? So something that's a behavior aspect that in itself. But two, instead of going into a spaceship, it's now, okay, what is actually happening? I can kind of see on a weekly basis, hey, what are your current macro distribution trends? Like, are you low on protein on certain days? Or is on, like you said, 2 days, you're having an increased amount of calories and that's it. Okay, now we know we need a 5-2 method on your current nutritional plan as we progress forward. So I think, just being able to track and having that buy-in for a lot of clients is really hard and difficult for the first week. But almost as we do in a lot of our science experiments, it's just like that teaches a lot of our subjects, okay, how to track and what they're actually consuming and what they need to adjust to abide by whatever protocol we're telling them to follow.
What do you think some really good ways to introduce tracking to an individual that's never tracked before, nor have they considered it until they speak to someone? I sort of like the approach that you take, Dr. Campbell, in the program, which when you introduced that assignment, it was, okay, we're going to start off by doing just breakfast. And then we did breakfast and lunch. And then you'd slowly work your way up to fully tracking your full day. Is that what you would, now I understand you don't coach, but is that a good way of building that habit of tracking, or what have you heard be successful?
Yeah, that's what I would do. And I would even dial that back. I would say, let's track your protein. My philosophy, I guess, is a protein anchored flexible dieting approach. So I would say, let's just track your protein at breakfast. Make them conscious of protein. All right, let's track your protein at lunch. Nothing else. Now your dinner. So then they start to get an idea of what protein foods are, and they know how to track it. And now they know if they're eating too much, or I don't know if that would be possible, if they're not eating enough. So yeah, I would dial that back. In our class, I just said breakfast, but if I'm probably working with a client who has no idea that butter is fat and that pasta is carbs and that chicken breast is protein, I would probably just start with just one macronutrient for one meal and start there and then build on that.
Would you do that on a daily basis for the week? So have that individual track protein for breakfast for that week?
Yes. Yep. That's exactly right.
And what would you say is a good indicator for you to up that to possibly breakfast and dinner, or breakfast and lunch, or breakfast and a snack, and taking it to that next step of doing an extra meal or snack?
Well, if they can adhere to tracking it for 7 straight days at breakfast, that tells me, hey, they can handle this. But if they only do it 3 days, I'm not going to add to their workload when they can't do that. And then it's possible, you don't, as much as I need to track, maybe this is somebody who needs an intuitive approach. All right, you don't want to track. It's obsessive. I get it. Let's stop. If they again, week after week, they're just not tracking. Well, I would be a bad coach if I said, you have to track. No, you don't. Let's try something else. Just identify the protein that you're eating. Can you identify the protein source? Write that down, or don't even write it down. Just tell me what it was when we have a check-in. What has been your protein source? So as much as I need to track, I'm not going to force that on clientele if it's just not working for them.
Yeah. And I think that's a interesting perspective that I've tried bouncing around, and I've tried doing the tracking protein. And then I find that people are having difficulties with that. So I try to figure out how to take a step back and have them plan ahead. And I always tell people, listen, if you don't want to track, if you don't want to pay attention to nutrition, can you at least invest in some protein powder and have that more frequently? Find one that you like, even if it's once a day. Can you add that? So I've tried doing that as my simplest approach, but I think I'm going to try to do that as well. Adam, do you have any other remarks you would like to add?
No, I think this was great. I just would always, as we finalize each episode, Dr. Campbell, we know you're an avid reader, both books and obviously research articles. If you could you give us and our listeners your top 3 to 5 books that have most impacted your life?
Yeah, so I'm a Christian, so the Bible would be, what I like about the Bible, it challenges me. So when I get angry at somebody, what's the message that I read? Love your enemy, love your neighbor. And so I like that. It just checks me at my worst. So Bible would be number 1. So life altering, obviously. After that, my personal productivity book is Getting Things Done by David Allen. So I love that his approach to project management. And you don't need fancy gadgets. You need a pencil and a piece of paper, or you can use an Excel spreadsheet, but getting things done. After that one, I love the book. And I think maybe we started looking at this, was So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. That has given me an appreciation for trying to be excellent, even in the minutia of just the daily tasks that, just like we said with body composition. I mean, you pinched a lot of subjects for that study. Well, I've pinched a lot of subjects in my career, but every time I pinch, I'm going to get better at this. I'm an expert in this. I'm really not, but it's just this craftsman mindset. So I love that. It brought a lot more meaning to me just trying to be excellent in my day-to-day work activities. So Bible, Getting Things Done, So Good They Can't Ignore You. That's 3. Raving Fans is an older book. You guys probably never heard of that one. It's probably written in the 1980s or 90s. But that is a customer service. I think every coach in the world should read that book. And it's just about unparalleled customer service, essentially. Like, make your clients love you, like fall in love, or your customers, whatever they are. Man, I want to say one more. I guess one other one, I think of you, Adam, it's called The Messiah Method. And that was my undergrad university. It's called Messiah College. And this was written by somebody studying their soccer program. So it was Division III soccer program. And that college had won like 9 straight Division III national championships for soccer. And it just went through, why are they so good? Because they had a budget of maybe like $500 for recruitment. And it just went through. I mean, nobody expects a Division III school to kind of own the world, but yet they did. And I think they still do. And it just talked about team chemistry. It talked about the biggest lesson I learned from that is if you don't like, and I think I've told you this, Adam, when we've talked about coaching or just research stuff, if you don't like something about in my case, my research program, it's my fault. I'm the director of the lab. So if I don't like something, it's me. It's my fault. So I love that. It's like, you don't like it, change it. Because if you're the boss, it's your fault. So yeah, that book was just a awesome perspective of leading people, managing a program. And again, that was soccer. I run a research lab. You guys have clients. Possibly you'll have assistant coaches one day. So that's one of the, I'd say that would be the 5th book that, another one was Chip and Dan Smith. No, it wasn't Switch. I don't remember, but it's two brothers from Stanford. It was a book about like telling stories. Like, I'm a scientist, but when you communicate with people, nobody wants data. Data's boring. People forget data. But if you can turn that data into a story, now people can remember. So that's something I took away from that book. Their second book that I have is called Switch, but I don't remember what the first book was.
Gotcha. If you could you get that back to us if you find the title of it? Because I'd like to read that.
The one that I can't remember the name of. It's in my office at work. Man, it's bothering me that I can't.
I think since Adam has finished the program, I'm pretty sure he's read about like 10 to 15 books. This man has every single book that someone has referenced. Yeah, he's about to go grab a stack. Every single book someone's recommended, Adam's
just
buying
this one. This is a great book. I look at sleep a whole different way from reading this book. And my next book is The Wisest One in the Room. This is going to be the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, this man's on a mission.
Yeah, my goal for this summer was to read a book every 2 weeks. And then on top of 2 research articles a day. But I just have way too much time on my hands. So but it's good. Yeah. I appreciate it, and I really enjoy it.
That's awesome. I'm currently reading Atomic Habits. You've probably heard of that.
Yeah, I remember I was reading that, and I asked you if you had read it, and then you told me he sent it to you. That was a really good book, easy read. I think I did that almost in almost a week, but it's very true. And I remember I started reading the Jocko Willett book, and I didn't care for it too much. Like you said, we kind of know that, right? If there's something wrong, stop pointing the finger at everyone else. It's you. It's ultimately your life. You're responsible for it. If you don't like it, change it. But I think the harsh reality nowadays, nobody can really accept that or swallow that pill. So
yeah.
But Dr. Campbell, for our 5 listeners, could you please tell them the university they should go to if they need to study exercise science? And let me tell you, let me hype this program up, right? Because I know a lot of individuals go to UF, FSU, and man, no disrespect to my college that I went to in Division II when I played ball in Uville, right? There's no there's no better program for honestly physique enhancement if you want to get a lot of practical application out of your degree than USF. And you got great mentors as Dr. Bill Campbell, Dr. Sam Buckner, Dr. Martinez. The list goes on and on and on. But Dr. Campbell, if people want to reach out to you or find out what you're all about, where can they find you, sir?
The one place is Instagram. It's really the only place. I'm not involved in any other social media platforms. And my username is @billcampbellphd. And I try to get back to everybody. So that would be a great place.
Alrighty. Well, you guys heard it here today. The man himself, Dr. Campbell, speaking all the smoke on mainly physique, but we had some strength talk in there as well. Thank you guys. Go ahead, leave a review, hit that follow button, share these messages, these podcasts, these videos, because you might change someone's life by just informing them with this so that they can lose weight slowly, or they find something else that really was the missing piece to their progress.